In this lesson, you will learn how to multiply multiple digit numbers by using an area model. Our goal is to use area models to solve multiplication expressions. So, how do you multiply with area models? Well, some people use base 10 blocks to represent multiplication, but others use area models. Both are actually the same in order to represent multiplication. How do we do that? Let's get started. But first, let's review. So we know that 6 times 7 can be represented as a couple of different expressions. Repeated addition. We know that this is 6 groups of 7, which is just 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7. We can also represent it as 6 by 7 as an area model. So we have down 6 and across 7, which of course gives us the same answer both times, 42. And we can count up the squares individually in order to see that. So now we're going to use an area model to represent multiple digit numbers. So we have 59 times 46. It's a little bit different. Think of this as 50 plus 9 and 46, 40 plus 6. If you think of it this way, it's a little bit easier to draw your area model, and it also is a little bit neater. So let's get started. We have 59. So you can draw this as a group of 50 and a group of 9. And then we have 40 and 6. So you want to, of course, go backwards from your hundreds, then to your tens, and then your single digits. And even beyond that if it's more than 3 digits. So this is a fancy way of using the distributive property. So then we just, of course, multiply each rectangle by what's in it. And then 60 times 6 times 50 and 6 times 9. So we'll start with 40 times 50. Well, we know 4 times 5 is 20, and we have 2 extra zeros. So that's 2,000. Next, we're going to multiply 40 times 9. 4 times 9 is 36. Add the 0 at the end again. Moving on, we can multiply 6 times 50. 6 times 5 is 30, and again, we have an extra 0 at the end, so 6 times 50 is 300. And then we have 6 times 9. Or 9 times 6, which is 54. Following this, we need to add all of our boxes together. So we have 2,000 plus 360 plus 300 plus 54, which gives us 2,714. So 59 times 46 is 2,714. And we've used an area model to represent that. Now, as a note, some people draw the area models. They'll actually draw 9 down. And notice that each one of these longer ones is represented by tens. And then they'll also draw 6 across all the way like this, and then draw their tens as well. So you have 5 and 4. And so each one of these would be 100. Each one of these would be 10. And of course there's several groups of 10 here. And then each one of these are your singles. Now doing it that way for some people is a really good visual method. That's with the base 10 blocks, for example. And you can use it as hundreds, tens, and ones. But I think that the way that I showed you is a little bit less complicated. You don't have to worry about how your drawings look. It's more numeric. But either way that you were taught will work. So let's continue. So what if we have some information, but we need to solve or find the missing numbers? Well, a good thing to do is to think backwards. In other words, look at your answers and look at the information that you have. And then look at things that you can automatically multiply right off the bat. So for example, I know in my last column, I multiply this number times this number. And I have both of those numbers. So I can multiply 4 times 5, which is 20. So I have one missing piece. And that can give me a few more pieces of information. Also, I can multiply 4 times 400. 4 times 4 is 16. Add the zeros. 1,600. So now I have a good place to start. Now, I don't know necessarily right here what would go there, but I do know that it's multiplied by 4 to get to 120. So I know 4 times something is 120. And of course, I can use algebra to solve by dividing both sides by 4. Or, of course, I can just use mental math and say, well, I know that 4 times 30 is 120. So I know 30 is my missing number here. So I know my top number is 435. Next, I need to say, well, 30 times what is 2,400? So again, I can just say 30 times what, or 30x, equals 2,400. And I can divide both sides by 30, or again, use mental math. 30 times what is 2,400. I'm going to use algebra, just as good practice. And I notice that that number is 80. Now I only have a couple more missing squares. Now that I have my numbers that I'm multiplying, which is 435 times 84, I can solve the rest of my missing numbers. So I know that 80 times 400, 32 with 3 zeros, 32,000. And I know that 80 times 5 is 400. So now I have all my missing numbers. And it didn't ask me to solve in this case, so I can add all those totals together to solve if I need to. 32,000 plus 2,400 plus 400 plus 1,600 plus 120 plus 20 would give me a grand total of 36,540. So that's an easy way of visualizing multiplication, especially if you're the type of person who might lose your place when you're doing it the traditional way. So now it's your turn. Multiply 51 times 17 using an area model. Make sure you draw those pictures and make sure you include all of your information as well as your totals. Then you're going to find the missing numbers in this scenario. So for example, I know that this is going to be 40 something. I know that this number times whatever's here is going to multiply to 120, and I know whatever this times this is going to give me 6. So remember those steps and go ahead and pause the tutorial to solve your guided practice now. In this lesson, you have learned how to multiply multiple digit numbers by using the area model. Remember, area models really help us visualize multiplication and can be an excellent tool in connecting area to multiplication. Great job again today.